Robin Lundberg Show. I'm joined now by my friend Peter Rosenberg. Of course, you can catch him on Ebro in the morning, Hot 97, the Michael K Show in the afternoon, WWE broadcasts with Cheap Heat with the Ringer. I think you got the podcast with Michelle Beadle, who's also a friend of mine on Wondery, right? So,
yes, that's Wondery, yep.
You know what I think, and maybe you fall into this category, there should be a job limit for people. You know, The Rock, Kevin Hart, maybe you fall into that category. Like, leave some jobs for other people, man.
It's fair, but the thing is, there has to be an asterisk because it has to be number of jobs. However, if up to a certain financial limit, like my many jobs don't come close to like 100th of Kevin Hart, right? So like there has to be a way for people like you and me to, if we have enough jobs, to like kind of make an actually good living, right? But it requires like 19 jobs. If you stop people short of that, you're basically a communist. You're saying the most you can make is like, $75,000 and that's the extent. So in order for me to try to survive this Manhattan life that I've been living, I get my share of shit in. That is for sure. So when the Wondery one came up, I was like, oh, this might be one too far. I don't know. And they were like, yeah, well, we produce it and you just got to like go record on Zoom. I was like, okay, I'll do it. Like, it's not that hard. It's like, if I can go in the other room and talk for 45 minutes, you know what? Let's give it a shot.
I do want to personally thank you, by the way, because I feel like you've really looked out for me. In recent years, we've known each other for a long time. And we go back to University of Maryland. And I want to talk a little bit about your career here because I'll do that in a minute. Because oftentimes I guarantee you get the like, where did you come from thing? And you want to be like, if I came from here, I started from the bottom, now we're here, right?
Yeah, right.
And I was hopping in after sports broadcast over on your From Dusk Till Dawn hip hop radio show at University of Maryland. And then, we saw each other here and there. I was on one of your boat parties, I believe, with the hip hop police following us around. I think DJ Premier might have been mixing, but I feel like in the last couple years, you really, started having some of my stuff played on K Show, and you hooked us up. I took the whole fam to a WWE house show at Madison Square Garden. So I do want to say I appreciate the fact that you've looked out like that.
Oh, well, of course, I've known you forever, and you've always been nothing but a good egg. And we've like sort of been two ships in the night. We were like at ESPN briefly for the same time. But never like really got to work together. And yeah, dude, you're the man. So anyone who I've known for a long time who's a good person, who I see like, oh, I saw your interest like in wrestling really picking up. So when I saw you were getting super into it, I kind of felt obligated. I know that you're not a schnurr. Shout out to our mutual dear friend Mike Brownshire. You're not a schnurr, and so you're not the kind of guy who's like, hey, can you hook me up? So I was like, I noticed that you're into it. So I'm like, let me reach out to Rob and let him know that if he needs the plug, I'm the plug. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did that one. We did one test show together that I think we might have done two. But the
ESPN.
The first one kicked ass. I remember thinking like, this is lightning in a bottle. And then I don't know if they thought we were too similar or what the case may be. Maybe they were like picking between one of the two of us to go on the K Show.
Too Bergish. That's very Bergish.
Two Bergs, one show.
Yeah, two Bergs, one show. I think it was my first on air ever on ESPN New York was with you, and RJ produced it on a Saturday afternoon, I believe, or Sunday afternoon, something like that. And we did like one other one. And that was the time when I had no idea what was going to happen with me and ESPN. I was also simultaneously doing a lot of stuff in Bristol. This was a long time ago when ESPN had different departments fighting over me to do work. Now it's like, I trust me, no one's fighting over getting me on anything at ESPN, okay? I just show up, do my show, and keep it moving.
Anyhow, the wrestling thing really, I was at an old apartment you had. I think we were watching some old wrestling shows, and you've been way into it. And I was super into it as a kid, super into it during the Attitude Era, and then like parachuting in for a while. And it was the pandemic where I put on a Royal Rumble one time. And my oldest was like, what is this? And we went.
How old was he at the time?
At the time, he was probably like 6, 7.
Perfect.
And we wound up watching every Royal Rumble every year up until 2020 at that point, which I could argue is the best Royal Rumble ever, though the star of that Royal Rumble is not allowed to be named at this very moment. But all my kids have super gotten into it. And then, of course, I've gotten into it, done some shows on Busted Open. We've got the Needle Wrestling podcast and everything. And right now is a special moment in wrestling, love it or hate it. What's going on with this Cody Rhodes, We Want Cody movement, to me, is like sort of similar, not in the way it went down to the Montreal Screwjob, because obviously different factors, but the kind of thing that we could be talking about 20 or 30 years from now.
That's a really interesting thought. You know, it sort of happened. It's sort of crept up on us over the last couple of weeks. And, you know, I kind of spent my podcast this week on Cheap Heat, like sort of making fun of people for taking this a little too seriously. But I also simultaneously appreciate it, because when people take things really seriously is when you get these moments that are like end up being sort of etched in stone as a thing. You know, maybe I'm a little bit of a cynic, and then I'm like, I assume everything's a work. I'm always just like, which, by the way, I'm good with that. I mean, it's a work. The business is, the whole thing's a work, right? So like, it's not like I don't enjoy a good work. I just like, sometimes I think the one place I differentiate sometimes with the internet wrestling fan is like the real anger towards anything related to it. Like, unless it's something, you know, outside, obviously, like the crazy news of a couple of weeks ago, that's real life. That's anger. That's pain. That's horrible. That's a real thing. When it comes to things that are happening within the ring or on a microphone that says WWE on it, I probably don't get as angry as some people do. I just assume it's part of what I'm watching, and I'm signed up for the ride, right? Like I wasn't the Game of Thrones fan who was bitching and moaning every week of the final season. Like I was like, hey, this is the final season of them trying to wrap up an epic, iconic show that covers hundreds of years and tons of characters. I don't know how you would do it. So I'm just going to let them try and go for the ride. And it's sort of similar here, right? WWE and wrestling in general, it's a forever TV show with storylines that need to be wrapped up. And sometimes you get 6 feet under and it's perfect and it feels just like you want it to feel. And sometimes it's The Sopranos and it just fades to black. And I don't really cry over either one.
Well, look, it's one thing to be like, not like it as a fan. There's another thing to get angry and be ridiculous about it. But here's my issue. And obviously you were alluding to the Vince McMahon stuff before, and there are the theories that, you know, the parent company comes in and wants to distance themselves from that. And the Vince thing is tough for all of us, right? Because that is the architect of pro wrestling that we love so much. And then you have this horrible stuff that's out there. And I don't think there's really anything else to be said other than this horrible stuff that's out there. They cut ties, and we'll see how the truth comes out and everything and what exactly he is guilty of. We know he's guilty of something, right? But when you talk about this specifically, my issue is it didn't make sense. If The Rock had won the Royal Rumble and come in at 30, there'd be Cody fans who were upset, no doubt about it. But they'd have to get over it because you're getting Rock Roman. I mean, people were excited when The Rock dropped that head of the table line a few weeks ago. The issue I have is it felt like they've been building Cody's story for 2 years, because I'm somebody who thinks it was right that Roman beat him because he needed to go through the struggle. It would have felt two-handed to him. And then once he won the Rumble, I'm like, oh, okay, it's Cody Roman. I'm preparing for that. And everything under this current regime has logically made sense until this, which didn't logically make sense. And that's why I call shenanigans.
And a lot of people, I think that's what a lot of people feel. A lot of people feel like, hey, it was clearly going to be this, and now it's not. I could argue, though, depending how this plays out, could that be brilliant fucking booking where you made everyone go, this is where the story has to be going, but now everyone knows that's where the story's going? You know, the thing I would ask is, would it, if we just got, and maybe we still will, we don't know, but if it had just gone straight through the way you described, Cody calls out, Seth says, I think you should take me. And Cody says, no, I want Roman. And then we get Roman and Cody at Mania. And, you know, we get the same bloodline shenanigans. Solo takes off the hood. Oh, guess what? It's Solo Sikoa. But this time, Cody's prepared. He hits the crossroads 3 times. 1, 2, 3, middle of the ring. Story's finished. a lot of us would be like, predictable. I mean, I'm just being honest. We'd be like, all right, that's been telegraphed now for a year.
Sometimes so predictable is good. It would have felt good. And I'm a Roman stan, right? Like the thing that would actually upset me is if The Rock beats Roman, because to me that doesn't pay off anything. It undercuts Roman's whole reign and it undercuts Cody at the same time. But to your point, if I'm defending your point, you look at the lower third there, WrestleMania feels bigger than the Super Bowl this week. Like that press conference at Las Vegas feels like it's going to generate more buzz than anything from Radio Row around the Super Bowl.
That's, I thought about that earlier. I was like, wow, they decided to do the presser in Vegas during the Super Bowl. By the way, that has to be a Nick Khan call. Like that feels like just such a big cojones move. Like, let's just do it in Vegas. We know everyone's there. We know people are paying attention. There's already going to be other media around. Gives them a little break from all the boring rigmarole that, let's be honest, Radio Row at the Super Bowl is. Same thing every day. It's a strong move that they did it. It's going to be fascinating to see whether it just ends up being a straight up face-off, like it just ends up being a face-off between Roman and The Rock, and that's sort of the big main event. Does something else interesting happen? Yesterday on Cheap Heat, I worked myself into a frenzy, fantasy booking something that will never happen, which was, I just think this would be, it's when I say fantasy booking, I mean truly a fantasy. You get to the presser and you get to Roman and The Rock, and The Rock gets up there. When he goes to talk, he starts giving his spiel that this isn't right, and he's heard what the people want, and the people clearly don't want me. The people want Cody. Brings up Cody, and when Cody's up there, while he's up there, Roman or Solo, whoever, comes out from behind, and The Rock and the Bloodline beat down Cody Rhodes. That, to me, would be the most epic. And now The Rock becomes yet another boss on the way to the super boss of Roman Reigns. I mean, it'd be the ultimate swerve. Never going to happen. But holy shit, that would be dope.
No, that's fire. That's fire. I'll give you that. And The Rock kind of needs that, I think, right now. Because if I'm being real about it, I felt he seemed a little lame for a while now. When he would come back, it'd just be relying on the catchphrases. And it was the nostalgia that was pulling me in. Now you add this corporate element that is real. And wrestling fans hate that. They hate this like corporate suit Rock.
That's a big thing. Corporate Rock is a real thing. Like that. It wasn't a real thing then, but now corporate Rock would be a real thing.
Nick Khan was my agent for like 5 minutes.
Wow. I got to tell you, that puts you in an elite class there for a while.
Except for he ghosted me after it happened. So if he's listening or you got a line to him, we've got good ideas. We can take it there.
How long? What era are we talking about?
We're talking. Back when we knew each other at ESPN, I think it was Max. He was repping Max at the time, and I was repped by somebody else who believed in me. And I was told because this guy was such a powerful agent, I should go this way. And the ties to the former agent got cut in a way I didn't like, that I had to go apologize for later down the line. And then Nick didn't return my calls.
And then you're like, I'm just a free. Now I'm just out here in the world.
Yeah, story of my career in many ways. Right?
By the way, this business will, it'll teach you some lessons. And by the time you learn them, you're like, well, how is this going to help me now? I needed to know that then. I needed to know it then.
Well, Jay-Z said, we have a back and forth on Jay-Z because you're not as big into Hove as I am.
Listen, I'm regular into Hove. You're a psychotic lunatic. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to use that to segue into two things. But He did have that speech the other night, which was obviously about the rap category being snubbed. And in a sense, everybody made it about Beyonce, but it really wasn't about Beyonce from beginning to end. That was a reference in the middle. And, him sort of being representative of the rap category. Look at them honoring me because, I became undeniable. But that's when I say his music is aspirational, it's kind of that feeling I mean. I'm not looking for the material possessions or to be on the Forbes list or anything. It'd be nice, but it's never what I thought about. But that idea of, what did he say? You keep showing up until they call you chairman, until they call you a genius, until they call you the greatest of all time.
That's been the clip that all week I've been meaning to cut it and post it because, that was, And listen, everyone's situation is relative, and I'm very blessed, and I love all the things that I do, but you show me someone who works in media, and I'll show you someone who's not happy with the way they're viewed or what they make or what they do. And I'm certainly no exception to that rule. And certainly within hip hop, where I don't always feel, let me be more blunt, where I basically never feel like I get my flowers for sort of the things I've said and supported and done in hip hop, that clip resonated with me because it was like, I do know at some point there's going to be a day, God willing, I'll be alive for it, when people are like, yo, I got to say, always talk shit, but Rosenberg, he was actually always on point. He was not about bullshit. He never supported bad shit. He didn't propagate like drama and rumors. He was actually really on point. We just kind of hated on him because he wasn't the dude that we wanted. You know what I mean? He wasn't the guy that we expected to be the guy. So we didn't really, so we decided to support other people who almost without fail all turn out to be scumbags. But he never did. He just kind of kept doing his thing. And into that thing I saw, it resonated with me too. Like, oh, just keep showing up. Just keep doing what you do. Don't get discouraged by the annoying things that come your way. If you keep showing up, eventually it'll happen. And, listen, Hove's thing happened for him certainly faster than it will happen for you or me if we're to have that moment happen. But because you look at the timeline now, you're like, well, you showed up in like 90. And by 2003, you owned music. So, it worked out pretty well. But I'm with you on the aspirational part of Jay-Z for sure.
And that, it clearly resonated. I have a Facebook reel on that's in the process of going viral right now. But it's a good transition to your career. And I hope you don't mind me sharing some of this stuff just because I think it's admirable. I mean, I remember, like I said, you were grinding. So when people see you, and they see you like, where did this guy come from? Why is he on Hot 97? Well, you're on Hot 97 because you worked to get there, because you did, the real late shows, because you established the connections, because you put people on, and same thing goes, once you get in a foothold somewhere, you work and you grind and you can get to these other outlets. But you've been a wrestling fan the whole time. I think those shirts that you wear, I didn't see other people wearing them before, and the podcast and all that stuff. So, you did it the right way as far as building your own brand and then these brands bringing you on. I'm sort of reverse engineering that right now. But I remember back in school, I would show up and we'd do the show and you were, I think you were DJing at like McDonald's and stuff back in that day. And like, I went to check you out and look at you now. Like that's the definition of a come up, right? Like, so even when you say, I'm sure you have your own internal frustrations, I have to do this, the 30,000 foot view, to go, okay, maybe I'm not exactly where I want to be here, or maybe this is a little setback, but look what you did and what you accomplished. And to go from student radio to hustling and DJing to morning drive and afternoon drive in New York to also prominent places like WWE and wherever else you are right now, that deserves a salute, and people should recognize that.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a grind. There were moments when I didn't think it was going to happen, and there were moments when I thought it could kind of all come unglued. And listen, in our business, when you talk on a live mic 8 hours a day in 2024, I always laugh at comedians who have their bullshit fake complaints about cancel culture. It's like they don't even operate in a world where like you could get canceled, because canceling's to me not a real thing. Getting fired is a real thing, and comedians can't get fired. So I never understand their crying about that. I have to actually talk to an audience every day, 50% of which on each station hates my guts. Okay? That is a fact. You're in a comedy club. Everyone who's there to see you paid money. They enjoy you. I actually have to balance being on a corporate entity for an audience that half hates me and be provocative enough to entertain people, but not do anything that makes them start writing letters to get me ousted. And so in this business, you never know if that's going to happen. And I obviously I try to do a good job and be respectful so that never would happen. But I'm certainly grateful for it. But I will say on the flip side of that coin, in talking about, accomplishments and the 30,000 foot view, like to be super blunt, like I'm sure there are moments when you or anyone else who I'm friends with see shit that I have going on, and I have a lot of shit going on. I'm like, man, fuck, does Rosenberg have any fucking more stuff going on? Like, I'm trying to make my shit happen. Flip side of that coin, after my divorce, when I was like in the lowest of lows, I saw people like you and my level of, I was like, I'd do anything to be you. Like, I mean, look at his beautiful wife and children and what a life. He's in the suburbs, going to soccer games. That was all I wanted, you know? And to me, it was so far away. Thank God now it all feels much closer, and that's wonderful. But my point is, we never know what that thing is without sort of widening the lens of like, what is the big picture of what is life and what is success? And like I said, unfortunately for people like us in the business, is there ever enough success? Like I wonder if Stephen A, a guy we both know well, I wonder if when Stephen A goes to bed at night, like even him, he's number one. Like, you cannot get bigger in the sports business than Stephen A. Smith. I wonder if Stephen A even truly feels 100% like, I've got it. Or even he sometimes looks around like, well, why is so-and-so doing this? Yeah. You know what I mean? So my point is, you just never know. But I am super grateful for everything that I've had.
Yeah, well, like, you could see Stephen A planning his next thing in real life.
Yeah.
You see it going on. And by the way, I can tell those words mean something because I could see in your like wedding pictures and stuff how happy you look, genuinely happy. And I don't know. And following you, obviously, I followed your career, and I wasn't jealous or anything like that because we know each other. But following you, and you check out what people say and how you, I do feel like at some point, whatever that was, whether it was what was going on personally, and then how it melded professionally, it feels like you kind of let your shoulders down a little bit, and maybe any of the pretense of some of that stress and anxiety was let down. Because when you did the Rumble the other night, you looked so relaxed and in control and confident, and that was cool to see.
I think a big part of that is the personal part. You know, I agree. Like, it's always something, right? Life is effing hard, dude. And you've been very open in talking about the situation with SI and where your career is going to go. And no one really warned us, at least in my life, no one truly warned me for the adulting of adulting. Like, I just did not know, like, there's always something. If it's not professional, it's personal. It's your parents getting older. It's the fears that happen here. It's a loss here. There's just so much stuff that adds up. And being able to have moments of calm where like you really feel like things have slowed down a bit are wonderful. And, you know, I was gone from WWE for a year. I did not think I'd be back. WrestleMania came up in 2019. My marriage had broken up in October 2018. I told them I needed time off. March or something comes around. I'm like, guys, I'm ready to go. And they were like, yeah, you know, the other stuff's going on, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to go scorched earth and like be like, how is this fair? I've already lost so much. Now I'm going to lose this job that was so much fun for me. And I didn't. Fortunately, I have a wonderful agent, and he was one of my best friends who was like, dude, life is long, buddy. Calm down. Let's just, things happen. You've been away. New people step in. Different things happen. Like, just do you. Be the guy that you are. Be the best version of yourself and keep doing. So I went on my podcast, and I basically said to my listeners, I'm like, now that I'm not with WWE, I'm going to keep it real. You know, and I said it was going to be this new era, the shoot era of Cheap Heat. I said, this is a new era. It's the shoot era. I don't hold back anything. I say everything. I changed nothing. It was a complete gimmick, right? It was a complete work. It was all just to like play into this idea that I'm not there. But really the whole time, I'm a respectful person when it comes to the business. So I don't really say crazy things. I don't speculate on rumors about people. I don't say anything that would ever be bridge burning. So I basically kept doing the show I ever did, but under the guise of my audience that it has like this edge now. Meanwhile, I really am playing it safe still. And a year passes, and, you know, I sent out an email one day, like, to check in and see what was going on. And before you know it, they're like, hey, you want to come back and have a conversation? And, you know, now I'm locked in to be there for a while longer. So like, it went from something that I thought I'd do for 5 minutes, grateful for everything that came up, to, you know, by the time I get out of my next deal, it'll be like 10 years I've been with the company. As my agent always points out, I'll have a run longer than like most of the superstars I ever rooted for, you know, as a kid. So I'm super grateful.
Last thing, and I know this personally, you know, you have feelings about this, as you should, but he put out a video earlier today, and you talked about canceling, and we just talked about comebacks. Kanye. Obviously, anybody who's been into hip hop has followed his career, and it's just amazing to me that the guy who made College Dropout and the guy who was the graduation symbol against 50 Cent at that time became what he has become, this monstrosity, this raving lunatic, if you will. Now he's got his daughter out there, which in a sense is almost like manipulative and conniving to try and be the front of this comeback. And when it comes to the anti-Semitic stuff, I'm not Jewish, but I've gotten a lot of...
But you should be.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of Jewish hate messages over the years. And, you know, it's really hard. Alec, how do you respond to them? Because you don't want to be like, I'm not Jewish, because who cares if I was Jewish?
So, by the way, that is a great bit. I mean, it's like so true. Like getting anti-Semitism because your name's a Berg, but you're not a Jew is, yeah, you're right. What is the right response? Like, hey, fuck you, but also I'm not Jewish.
But, you know, his music meant so much to so many of us for so long. Do you think there is an avenue for him to come back?
Listen, I now am regarded, I think, by some as like being obsessed with him because I talk about it a lot and I post videos about him a lot. Because like you, I'm angry about it. Like I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm sad. Like it's this bizarre hybrid of there's clearly a mental health portion of it, but then there's also a thing about like people making decisions to not take care of themselves, even when they know they have a mental health situation. That like, it's hard to say what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like, well, he doesn't take care of himself because he has a mental health problem. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. But my guess is he's not constantly in a manic episode. And there are probably times when during those non-manic episodes, he has conversations with loved ones and is like, I'm going to keep going with this because it's working.
You see it in that Netflix documentary, by the way. You can see when he's lucid versus when he's not. Like you can see the two different guys.
Very clearly. And so let me answer your question without being overly long-winded, and then we can be long-winded about it if you like. I don't think there's a realistic avenue for coming back because I just don't believe it's going to happen. I don't believe he's going to get the help necessary and listen to people in a way that would get him to be a better person. I just think no matter what he says or does, there are fans and artists and industry people who are going to kiss his ass. Like, I'm sorry, like we're watching it right now. People I love and respect who are still running up to be next to him whenever they can because he's that big a star. They don't care about what he says or does. So because he'll always have that, because he'll always have the room willing to go, yeah, that's right, Kanye, tell him, even when he's saying nonsensical bullshit. I don't know that he'll ever get that help. It just seems like if it was going to happen, it would have happened. I think the more likely path is more akin to Donald Trump, right? It's someone who was once one thing, who eventually, after getting reinforcement of doing this other thing, just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going to the point that like my niece and nephew wouldn't understand that Donald Trump, like I didn't have any like granted, I didn't know about his stance on the Central Park 5 and some things like that, whatever. But like societally, we didn't think negative of Donald Trump. He was rich. He was a rich guy. He was at all parties. Rappers would reference him, and he hosted WrestleMania and stood in the ring with Mike Tyson and popped up in Home Alone. Like, and then all of a sudden, he is the face of the division of America and the downgrading of our culture. So sadly, I think it's more likely Ye goes on that path than anything else.
Apartment in the Trump I only slept in once. Yeah, in
Exactly.
2013, he got booed at MetLife Stadium, WrestleMania. That's the first time I remember.
Did he get booed?
Oh, yeah, he got booed. I don't know what had gone on. It must have been a New York related thing at the time because like you, like it wasn't this like, oh, I hate Donald Trump deal or I, you knew what he was about and all that stuff.
He sat at that Mania. He sat in the seat in front of me, the direct seat in front of me he stayed for like 90 minutes. His entire family was there. I have all these pictures on my cell phone of his hair. His head, because I was just baffled. Like this is pre us really talking about his hair because he wasn't Donald Trump yet in that way. So I was just sitting behind him amazed, like, what the hell is going on with this dude's hair? So my phone is just, unfortunately, I don't have any other interesting pictures or video. It's just like shots of the back of his head. But yeah, in retrospect, it's bizarre that in that moment, he was this totally different thing. And him sitting in front of me for 90 minutes was literally just like novel. Like, oh, Donald Trump's sitting right there. That's cool. Nothing to think of it. Oh, it's bizarre. Bizarre world, dude. But I don't remember the booze. I kind of want to go back and see that.
Speaking of booze, last thing. Will The Rock be Hogan on your will Roman Reigns be Hogan on your shirt at WrestleMania in Philly?
The icon versus icon shirt.
Yeah, get the cheers versus the booze on The Rock again.
It's so hard to say because I don't think we know at this point who would be the baby face and who would be the heel in the match. You know, people might. The best part of this, the best thing that is such a brilliant, underrated character in what's happening is the crowd in Philadelphia. Of every Mania ever, this is in some ways the most and least fortunate of situations because you never forget what they did to Roman Reigns and The Rock in 2015 at the Royal Rumble in Philadelphia. The Rock comes out to save Roman Reigns from the crowd. Even The Rock could not save him. So you have these merciless boos coming down with The Rock and Roman Reigns holding hands in the ring in Philadelphia. And now it ends up being this situation where the Philly fans may feel like The Rock and Roman are being forced down their throat again. It has the potential for just an unbelievably surreal scene. And that's exactly why I think something is going to happen between now and then. And it probably won't be that. But that's just my hunch. I know nothing.
Peter Rosenberg, really appreciate the time, man. You can check him out, of course, Hot 97 in the morning, ESPN New York in the afternoon, WWE, Over the Top Podcast, Cheap Heat Podcast, and everywhere else.
Just type my name in the podcast app and you'll see things come up. That's the best thing to do.
Thanks, dude. Really appreciate it.